Hello, everyone, and welcome to the online version of Psychology 1250 Social Behavior. I'm your instructor, Dr. Stephen Smith. I'm a professor of psychology and I'm also the Dean of Science here at St. Mary's. I've been teaching for about 20 years now in the psychology department, and I've taught the social behavior course ever since I started teaching. And around 6 or 7 years ago, I developed this online course. It's been revised a couple of times since then, but so this is a course that is very well established and very well reviewed, and I think you'll find it relatively easy to navigate. The purpose of this session is really to give you a sense of what the course is going to be about, and what are the kinds of things that you're going to have to do in this course to be successful. Online courses can be very complicated, and this course, like many of them, moves ahead very quickly. There are things due basically every week, so make sure you don't let yourself fall behind. Everything that we do in this course is going to be due at 6 p.m. on Fridays, with the exception of the tests and exams, which we'll talk about a little later. But all of the assignments, all of the discussions, all that sort of stuff needs to be done by 6 p.m. on Fridays. Once you've gone through this PowerPoint, you think all of your questions have been answered, you can go ahead and start the orientation test. The orientation test that you're going to do is essentially a review of the material within this session and on the course syllabus. So make sure you read the syllabus carefully before you do that. So by participating in this session, you're already getting ahead. Make sure you stay on top of your assignments and discussions. There's something due every single week pretty much. So make sure you stay very carefully aware of all the deadlines that you have to deal with in terms of assignments and discussions, and as well as the tests, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Remember, typically Fridays at 6 p.m. is when things are due. The tests are obviously due at different times, but Friday at 6 p.m. is always when the discussions and assignments are due. There are several components to the evaluation for this course. After you finish this orientation session, you'll go and do the orientation test and the Declaration of Academic Honesty. Both of these are due at the end of the second week of classes at 6 p.m. And together they're worth 6%. Essentially, this is free grades for you because all you have to, you can do them as many times as you want as long as you get them done. If you do not get them done by then, you will get 0% and you'll be throwing away those grades. So make sure you get those done by the end of the second week of class. There are also 3 tests in this course. There's 2 in-class tests, I should say online tests, that really deal with the class material that has been covered up until those points. And then there's a final exam, which is cumulative, as scheduled by the registrar. I want to make you aware of something that, the tests are not worth a whole lot of points. They're worth 15% each. Those are open book tests, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. But I want you to be aware they are available from 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. each of the days that they are available. And I do that because I want to make sure that there's ITSS support, help desk support for you in case something goes wrong. Also, as I noted a couple times already, there's online activities and discussions. They're scored weekly and they're due every week, so pay attention to those dates and times very carefully. So there are 24 modules in the course. Each of those modules in the course corresponds with the module in the text. Read the book first before looking at the online modules. It'll help you understand things a lot better. So typically for the module, what happens is the progression is you start with the objectives and an overview of the module. Then there's information or the content. There's checkpoints which are required. There are discussion topics that you have to do, and there's 6 of those across the 24 modules. There are activities, and sometimes there are multiple activities within a module. There are what I call for further thought, which I'll talk a little bit about later, and we do post-tests after each module to help make sure you understand the material that you've covered. So within the modules, you'll uncover what are called checkpoints, where you'll be asked questions to gauge your understanding of the material, and these are required to do. The discussion topics, there's 6 of them across the 24 modules, and there will be 1 assigned discussion topic, and you'll be assigned to a discussion group. You must make, in order to get points for a discussion, you must make an original post and then respond to at least 1 classmate. Be sure to use the course content to back up your responses and not just provide your opinion. These discussion posts are required. And I also want to make it clear that there is a very clear expectation and an enforced expectation of appropriate, respectful behavior during these discussions. I will not tolerate disrespectful or attacking behavior during the discussion, so make sure that your posts are not only accurate, but are backed up by the science of the textbook and are respectful of other people's points of view. In each module, you'll also encounter something called 4 further thought questions. These aren't required to be submitted, but they're intended to help you learn and study for the tests. So the 4 further thought kind of question that you might get might be similar to the type of short answer question I might put on the exams. There are also activities in each module, and there'll be links to interactive activities that you can get from the Connect website. These are not formally graded. I will remind you the Connect website is the one that is provides the online material from the textbook. So you do indeed need the Connect code from the textbook in order to log on to the website. I strongly encourage you to take advantage of these activities and learn from them. They'll be extremely valuable to you. And then finally, there are post tests at the end of each module, and you'll be reminded to do those post tests, which are really designed to follow up on the module materials. It's for you to assess yourself in terms of how much you've learned about the material in the module, and maybe where you need to go back and learn a bit more. As I mentioned before, in terms of the discussions, the assignments, I expect you to be thoughtful, flexible, and respectful. Disrespectful, racist, sexist behavior will not be tolerated at any level. We have a student code of conduct. We have an expectation of respect, respectful discussion and communication across campus. And the links to the discussions in the modules themselves, they are live links within the modules. You can just click on them and it'll give you the context to understand the question and put your discussion or your response up on the discussion link within the Brightspace. Just make sure you've read the material in the module first. It'll be really helpful, again, because I expect you to use evidence to back up what you say. Now, students often ask me how to study for the tests. Well, each test will be up to 40 multiple choice questions and then 4 to 8 short answer questions, depending on how I feel. The multiple choice questions are much like any other multiple choice question you might see in other courses. They come from the book, they come from the course content, they come from anything. So it's not limited to just one, the book, for example. Then I also ask short answer questions, which require you to think a lot more in terms of where things come from and that sort of thing and how they might be applied. And the objectives, the activities, the POTESs are also useful guides for you to understand what the material is that I may be using, but also where you might have weaknesses that need to be addressed. All the tests, the online tests, are open book. But I'll warn you that having an open book doesn't always help. You only have an hour to do those tests, so you do not have a whole lot of time to be searching for things within the textbook. Your best bet is to study well ahead of time. The final exam will follow a somewhat different format. I'll have up to 10 multiple choice questions, but I really focus on the short answer questions in the final exam. And the final exam covers the entire text, the entire course, the entire set of discussions and activities that you've done. Everything in the course is up for grabs for the final exam. So all of these different elements, the objectives, the activities, the POTESs, are again very useful as guides. The final exam is closed book and in person on campus. I do not allow phones. I do not allow any kind of additional devices. And that exam is done again on campus. It's scheduled by the registrar during the final exam period. So you now have until the Friday of the second week of classes to get your orientation test done. I spoke briefly about that earlier. Again, you get 5% for watching the session doing the orientation test. If you don't do the orientation test, you get nothing. So I want you to learn this information and remember it. You can redo this test if you do badly the first time, but just make sure you take the time to get it done and get it done by Friday, the second Friday of classes, because if you don't get it done by then, you will get 0. Okay, so I'm looking forward to teaching this course. I hope you're looking forward to taking it. Again, if you have any questions or need any information, please do not hesitate to contact me. My email is on the syllabus. Thank you.